A container ship sits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Its engine produces over 100,000 horsepower. That's enough power to run a small city. And yet that ship is moving at roughly the same speed as a bicycle. You've probably seen container ships in the distance from a beach or a coastal highway and never thought twice about how slowly they seem to crawl across the horizon. But that slowness is not a limitation of the technology. It is not because the engines are weak, and it is not because the hull is heavy. It is a hard physical wall that every ship on Earth crashes into, and no amount of fuel, money, or engineering has been able to break through it economically in over a century of trying. The world's largest container ships top out at around 43 miles per hour. That's it. A vessel longer than the Empire State Building is tall, carrying 24,000 shipping containers across an ocean, moves slower than your car driving through a quiet suburb. Why? What's stopping them? And here is the part nobody tells you. Shipping companies could go faster. They choose not to. The reason is buried in a piece of physics most people have never heard of, and it touches almost every product in your house. First, let's destroy the misconception. Most people assume that if you want a ship to go faster, you just add more power. Bigger engine, more fuel, more speed. That's how cars work. That's how planes work. That's how almost every machine you've ever interacted with works. But water is not air, and a ship is not a car. A car fights friction against a road. A plane fights thin atmosphere. A ship fights an entire ocean that pushes back harder the faster you move. Water is about 800 times denser than air. Moving through it is less like driving and more like pushing a wall that pushes back. Here's what's actually happening. The faster a ship moves through water, the harder the water fights back. And that fight does not grow in a straight line. It grows on a curve that gets brutally steep, brutally fast. Picture trying to run on a treadmill that gets steeper every time you speed up. At a walking pace, you barely feel the incline. Speed up a little, the treadmill tilts up. Speed up more, it tilts up sharper. Eventually, you're sprinting straight up a wall, and no matter how much harder you push, you barely move forward. That's exactly what water does to a ship. Every extra mile per hour costs more than the last. The bill grows on a curve, not a line, and eventually that bill becomes impossible to pay. The ocean wins every time. Now here is where it gets crazy. The reason for that wall has a name. It is called wave-making resistance, and it has nothing to do with friction. When a ship moves through the water, the bow pushes water aside. That displaced water rises up and forms a wave that travels along the side of the hull. As speed increases, that wave gets bigger, taller, longer. Pretty soon, the ship is not just moving through water anymore. It is climbing its own wave. The faster it goes, the steeper that climb becomes. This is the part that should rewire how you see every photo of a ship cutting through the ocean. The bow wave from a fully loaded supertanker can rise higher than a 2-story house. The ship is essentially trying to climb a hill of water that it created itself. Every foot of speed it gains makes that hill steeper. The engine is not fighting the ocean. It is fighting a wave the ship just built. And the bigger the ship, the bigger that wave gets. The vessel is its own worst enemy out on the open water. And here is the cruel mathematics of it. There is a number called hull speed, and it is locked directly to the length of the ship's waterline. Once a ship hits that speed, the bow wave's length matches the hull's length almost exactly. The vessel is now sitting in a trough of its own making, bow climbing one wave, stern sinking into another. To go any faster, the ship has to physically climb out of that trough, and climbing out costs a staggering amount of fuel. The longer the ship, the higher its hull speed sits, which is one reason container ships keep getting longer and longer with every new generation. Doubling the speed does not double the fuel. It can quadruple. Going from 20 miles per hour to 24 miles per hour on a container ship can burn as much extra fuel as adding an entire fleet of long-haul diesel trucks running 24 hours a day. The numbers stop making sense, and the economics collapse. A few extra knots can mean millions of extra dollars in fuel on a single trans-Pacific crossing. Those millions come straight out of profit margin. No shipping company in the world wants to give up that money for a slightly earlier arrival. So shipping companies do something that sounds absurd. They slow down on purpose. They call it slow steaming, and it became standard practice across the industry after the 2008 financial crisis. Cutting a ship's speed by just 10% can reduce its fuel consumption by nearly 30%. Slowing down is not laziness. It is the smartest financial decision the shipping industry ever made. And once the math became visible, nobody wanted to go back to burning fuel for nothing. But it did not start that way. Go back to the 1800s, and you will find ship captains obsessed with speed. The legendary tea clippers raced from China to England at breakneck speed, because whoever delivered the first crop of the season got the highest price. Speed meant money. Then came the great ocean liners. The SS United States crossed the Atlantic in 1952 at over 43 miles per hour. It burned fuel like a small power plant. It was a marvel of engineering, and it was also wildly impractical for moving cargo. The whole world celebrated her, and the whole industry quietly took notes about the cost. Then 1973 happened. The oil crisis hit, fuel prices exploded overnight, and the entire shipping industry was forced to do brutal math. Suddenly, going fast did not pay. Going slow did. And the industry never went back. Today, container ships move at half the speed of those 1950s ocean liners, and they carry 50 times the cargo. The world traded speed for scale, and it never looked back. The era of the fast ship quietly ended in a boardroom calculation, not on the ocean. No one threw a funeral. The numbers just stopped working. Here's the part that should stop you. You have been living inside this 70 miles per hour ceiling your entire life without knowing it. Every product you own has obeyed it. That smartphone in your pocket. It crossed the Pacific Ocean at the speed of a person riding an electric bike through a city. The shirt you are wearing. It spent 3 weeks at sea, moving slower than a recreational sailboat in a brisk wind. That couch in your living room, those sneakers in your closet, the coffee in your kitchen, the television on your wall, they all made the journey at roughly the same crawl. Almost 90% of everything traded globally moves by sea, and every single piece of it is operating under the same physical law that says you can have cheap, you can have plentiful, but you cannot have fast. Pick any two. You will never get all three at the same time. This is why fresh fruit from another continent flies in cargo planes while electronics drift across oceans for weeks. It is why global supply chains are planned in months rather than days. It is why a delay in the Suez Canal can ripple through the world economy for half a year. The entire rhythm of modern trade is set by a wave-making problem that no engineer has been able to solve. Christmas inventory leaves Asia in August. Spring fashion leaves in January. The calendar of your shopping life is dictated by hull speed. Every Black Friday deal began as a slow voyage that started months earlier in some distant port halfway around the world. But slow steaming has a darker side, and the postcard never shows you this part. Marine diesel engines are designed to run at specific loads. When you drop a ship's speed too far below its design specs, the engine actually wears faster, not slower. Carbon deposits build up. cylinders foul, maintenance costs climb. Crews end up at sea for weeks longer per trip, which means more pay, more food, more fatigue. And a ship that is moving too slowly cannot always outrun bad weather. Sometimes the storm catches the ship that should have been 20 miles further along the route. The savings on fuel can be erased by one bad week at sea, fighting waves the ship could have avoided. It is the difference between a marathon runner who paces themselves and one who walks the entire race. The walker saves energy, but loses the ability to sprint when something dangerous appears on the horizon. The industry is constantly recalculating that balance, ship by ship, route by route, season by season. Some routes run faster in storm season. Some run slower when fuel spikes. Every voyage is a fresh equation written by fuel prices, weather charts, and delivery deadlines. There is no universal answer that works for every ocean. There are exceptions. Naval warships still chase speed because outrunning a missile matters more than fuel economy. High-speed ferries skim across short routes on hydrofoils, using clever hull designs that lift them partly out of the water to dodge the wave-making problem entirely. But for any vessel carrying serious cargo across serious distance, the wall holds. No commercial cargo ship has ever broken it economically. And the largest ships on the ocean today, the ones carrying your refrigerator and your sneakers, are quietly the slowest ones the industry has built in over half a century. The biggest vessels ever floated are also among the most patient travelers on the planet. So here is where you land after all of this. You came in thinking ships were slow because of old technology, or heavy cargo, or boring engineering. What you were actually looking at is a vessel that could go faster, that has the power to go faster, that has the engineering to go faster, choosing not to because the physics of water makes speed exponentially expensive. That 70 miles per hour ceiling is not a failure. It is the smartest decision shipping ever made. The world figured out that slow is cheap, slow is efficient, and slow moves more cargo than any fast ship ever could. Every container in your house is proof of that decision, sitting silently in your living room. The crawl across the horizon is the most efficient form of transportation ever invented per ton-mile of cargo moved. Now here is the next thing that should keep you up at night. If a fully loaded supertanker is already moving slowly, you would think stopping one would be easy. It is not. A supertanker traveling at full cruising speed needs roughly 12 miles and over 14 minutes to come to a complete stop. That is not a vehicle braking. That is something far stranger, governed by a different kind of physics entirely. Subscribe, and we will get into exact